This week we will be working on this Dynabook Pro C40-H-101. This was sent to me by a subscriber. He says when he presses the power button, the power light comes on, but it never shows the display. Let me just see if that is the same as what I'm seeing here. So I have it connected to power and I'm pressing the power button. You can see a little blue light has come on here in the top corner. I hear the fan spinning up. But nothing is happening. We got caps lock. Not by the look of it. Okay, so I'm going to leave this and see if it actually comes on. Okay, so the light has gone off again. And we're back on. But it's not showing any display. Why don't we take out the motherboard? I'll scan it into the screen and we can work on this together. I scanned the motherboard with my flatbed scanner, and as you can see, it did quite a good job. Now, the first thing I did, of course, is to carry out a quick visual inspection on the board. And as you can see, the board is pretty clean. There's no signs of spills and there's no signs of damage. That is just simply glue where the hard drive was sitting in the M.2 connection. So what I'm going to do is to focus in on our DC in jack, and we're going to start taking some voltage measurements there. So first of all, of course, we connect it to power. Now, we don't have a schematic for the Dynabook laptops, but as you can see, this is one of the older style barrel DC input jacks. And with these, we have grounds on the outside and our DC voltage comes in on the center pin. So we need to take a voltage measurement here to see if we are getting the correct power from our DC power adapter. I've zoomed in just a little so that we can see things a bit more clearly. With my multimeter in volts DC in the 20 volt range, I place my black probe to ground and I place my red probe to the center pin of that DC connector. And when I measure there, I find that we have 18.80 volts. Just a quick note here. On the back of my laptop power adapter, it says that it should produce an output of 19 volts DC. I'm reading 18.8 volts DC on my input jack, which is close enough to 19 volts DC. So I'm going to continue troubleshooting from this point on, as if both my power adapter and my DC jack are good. So where does our 18.8 volts go from here? Well, let's follow it. So we're following it across this track here and onto this MOSFET here. This MOSFET is labeled Q24, and I can see from the markings on it that this is a DC3905. And if we look at that, we see that we have 4 drain pins on this side here. We have a gate pin here and 3 source pins here. And if we reference the datasheet for the DC3905, we can see that this is a 30 volt P-channel MOSFET. So what does that mean? Well, the fact that it's a P-channel MOSFET means that this expects to have a low voltage signal on the gate in order for the MOSFET to be switched on. And measuring at the gate pin of the MOSFET, we find that we have a gate signal of 4.6 volts. A voltage of 4.6 volts at the gate pin should be an appropriate signal to switch this MOSFET on and allow our 18.8 volts through from our drain to our source. To confirm this, we take a voltage reading at the source pins and we find that we do in fact have 18.8 volts at the source pin of the first MOSFET. That 18.8 volts then travels on to the source pins of a second MOSFET. Now you can actually see the markings on this that it is the same DC3905 MOSFET. If we mark in the pinouts for that, you can see that we have 3 source pins here, a gate pin here, and 4 drain pins on the other side. And if we take a voltage measurement at the gate pin of that second DC3905, we find that we also have a gate voltage of 4.6 volts. A gate voltage of 4.6 volts on this second DC3905 P-channel MOSFET should switch it on. So our 18.80 volts should be coming through from our source to our drain. So what we want to check next is to confirm that we are getting 18.8 volts on the drain pins of that MOSFET. So if we take a voltage measurement at the drain pins, we find that we do indeed have a drain voltage of 18.8 volts. And from here, our 18.8 volts goes down through these vias to some other part of the motherboard. But what do we know up to this point? Well, we've confirmed that our power adapter is delivering 18.8 volts to the motherboard. That 18.8 volts is coming through this first MOSFET and through this second MOSFET. So we're good up to this point. So let's find out where our 18.8 volts goes next.
Without a schematic for this motherboard, how are we meant to know where it goes next? Well, we know from previous laptops that we've worked on here that there's a familiar configuration on these inputs where you have two MOSFETs and then a current sense resistor. So even without a schematic, I know that we need to look for a current sense resistor next. So where do I see a current sense resistor? Well, we know that they generally look something like this and this. And we also know from previous laptops that we've worked on that generally there's two of these that are of the same size. One on the main power rail and one on the power rail that's sent down to charge the battery. And when I took a voltage measurement at this current sense resistor, I found that we measured 18.80 volts. So this current sensor right here is the one on the main input power rail. I've drawn a quick schematic to help us understand what's happening here. So we have our adapter voltage that comes in, we've measured at 18.80 volts. That comes through our first MOSFET, it comes through our second MOSFET, and we've measured here and confirmed that we have 18.8 volts after the second MOSFET. We've also then located the current sense resistor on that input power rail and confirmed that we have 18.80 volts after this. Back to our motherboard, we can see that this current sense resistor has two paths going back to this IC right here. And I'm sure, as you all know at this stage, anything with BQ in front of it is the battery management IC. And this is a component we need to be concerned with next. So let me just go back to our schematic and draw in how this fits into the configuration. Now, even though we don't have a schematic for this motherboard, we can get the datasheet for the BQ247805 battery management IC. And if I draw that in here, you can see that the battery management IC has two pins that are connected to this current sense resistor to tell it how much current is coming into the system. But unlike the narrow voltage systems, this one does not regulate the 18.8 volts down to a lower voltage before sending that down to our secondary power rails. The 18.8 volts simply goes through the current sense resistor and then down to all of our secondary power rails. So in the inputs to all of our secondary circuits for our 3.3 volt voltage regulation module, our 5 volts voltage regulation module, they should all get that same 18.8 volts input. Back on our motherboard, I drew in the pinouts for this battery management IC, which I got from the datasheet. And from there, I took the following measurements. So we just want to confirm that everything looks okay from the battery management IC's point of view. So as you can see here, these are the two pins that come in from the current sense resistor. I'm measuring 18.8 volts at two of these pins. The voltage drop across that current sense resistor is negligible because it's not drawing much current at the moment. You can also see on the ACOK pin we have 3.9 volts, so that's telling me that it is detecting the adapter input voltage. And as you can see here, this is the Reg N pin as we saw on previous laptops that we work on. This is an internal 6 volt LDO. And this is coming online, so that's a good indication that the battery management IC is working. So everything looks okay up to this point. Our battery management IC seems to have the correct voltages, and we have our main power rail which is measuring 18.80 volts. So where does it go next? Well, our main power rail then goes down and is spread out to all of the other secondary circuits. For example, it goes down to an IC called U21, which produces our 3.3 volts. It goes down to another IC called U22, which is producing our 5 volts, and a number of other circuits. So the next test we need to carry out is very simple. We need to locate the IC responsible for producing our 3.3 volts, make sure it has the correct input of 18.8 volts on the input, and make sure that it is producing the two correct outputs. So let's go find that IC. This IC right here is U21. So if we mark in the pinouts for this, you can see how it works. We get a voltage on pin 1, V in, so we should be getting our input voltage here. Pin 6 is our LDO, so we should be measuring 3.3 volts here. And on SW, it's our higher current 3.3 volts power rail, so we should be measuring 3.3 volts here as well. So if we put our multimeter into volts DC in a 20 volt range again, take a measurement on the input, which we can measure here at one of these capacitors, and we find that we have an input of 18.80 volts. So our 18.8 volts power rail is making it down to the input of U21. Next thing we need to check is just to check those two outputs. Our LDO voltage on pin 6 comes out to this capacitor here, so it's safer to measure here than it is to measure at these tiny pins. So when I measure here, I find that we have a voltage of 3.3 volts, so that looks good. And the last measurement is our higher current 3.3 volts power rail. So we take a voltage measurement at this pin right here, and when we measure there, we find that we have 3.3 volts as well. It's easier, of course, to measure out at this inductor and safer here as well. But we've confirmed that this IC is getting the correct input voltage and it's producing the two correct 3.3 volt outputs. Back to our schematic, the next thing I want to check is U22. I want to find this IC and confirm that it's getting the correct input and producing the correct 5 volts output. And this is U22. So this is actually the same type of IC that we saw, which is responsible for producing our 3.3 volts, but this one is responsible for producing our 5 volts. So let's mark in the pinouts for this. And as you can see, it's the same pinout configuration. We have an input here. If I measure at this capacitor here, we can confirm that we are getting the correct 18.8 input. So you can see it here, we measured on this capacitor. So similarly, we have an LDO output on pin 6, which we can measure here. When I measure here, we find that we have 5 volts. And the last check we want to carry out at this IC is to measure at pin 7, which is our switched higher current 5 volts output. If we measure here, we find that we have 5.0 volts. So this IC is working also. Now at this point we have confirmed that our 3.3 volts power rail is online and our 5 volts power rail is online. We also have other power rails for our 1.2 volts, for our memory, 1.8 volts, etc, etc. Now I'm not going to go to the painstaking detail of locating each IC, drawing out all the pinouts for those. What I'm going to do is fast track this and just go straight to the inductors and measure it and see if we're getting the correct output voltages at each of the inductors on the motherboard. So let's do that now. So these are the measurements that I took at all of the secondary inductors while the laptop motherboard was connected to power but not yet powered on. That's why I have a sort of an orange outline to indicate that this is essentially in standby mode. On this inductor here I measured 5 volts, I measured 3.3 volts. On this inductor I measured 8.6 volts. That's on the battery power rail. So I have no battery connected, and this really doesn't have any significance, I guess, without having a battery connected. Scrolling down, we can see at these two inductors down here, they are producing 1.8 volts. These two here are producing 0.0 volts, and this last inductor up here is producing 0.0 volts also. Now, while it is useful to know what those standby voltages are, we really need to power on the laptop fully in order to test it fully. This is the Super I/O. It's an ITE IT5570E, and these are the pinouts for that Super I/O. What you can see is on pin 110 is where our power switch signal comes in from our keyboard. Now we should be measuring about 3 volts on this pin, and to simulate the power button being pressed, we simply jumper this to ground. The only difficult thing about doing this is the pins are tiny and you need to be very, very careful. But I successfully jumpered this to ground. I felt the CPU warming up, so I knew that it had powered on. When it was powered on, I went round and took the voltages at all of those secondary inductors once again. And these are the voltage measurements that I took with the laptop connected to power and now powered on. So we still have 5 volts on this inductor and 3.3 volts here. We have 8.6 volts. If we scroll down, we now see that having pressed the power button, we have 1.8 volts on these two inductors as well as 1.8 volts on these two inductors. If we scroll back up, we see that we have 1.2 volts on this inductor here, which no doubt is for our memory. So at this point, it looks like all of our voltage rails are coming online, but still we don't have any display. So the first thing I want to check is to check on the memory. With my microscope, I took a closer look at the DIMM sockets just to see if there was any signs of damage or dirt. As you can see, there was small little bits of dirt which I cleaned out with a hoover and a toothbrush, but there was no signs of any significant damage. I tried replacing the memory that it came with a known good DIMM, but that didn't make any difference either. And I also tried pressing down on the DIMM in the socket, as we've seen with some of the HPs that can get them back to life. But nothing I did with the memory brought this back to life, so I don't think it's anything to do with a memory issue. So it looks like the laptop has the familiar power on, no display symptom. You may remember a number of months ago on this channel I put together a quick checklist for this situation. So the next thing I did was to simply walk through these steps one by one. Now I walked through steps 1 to 8 without making any progress. So the next step is to reprogram the BIOS. Now my difficulty with this is this laptop isn't hugely popular, I think, because I cannot find a replacement BIOS file on Badcaps or any of the usual sources. So I decided to go straight to the Dynabook website and see if I could somehow locate a replacement BIOS file there. On the Dynabook website, I found a page for the Satellite Pro C40H and I located the drivers and updates. Within there was a BIOS download, and the one that I downloaded was this one right here, version 1.17. When I extracted the contents of that download to a separate folder, I found that it contained these files. Now if you look, one of these is 16384 kilobytes and is labeled as being a ROM file. So I decided to use AS Programmer to reprogram my BIOS with this file. So with my BIOS programmer, I selected the BIOS that I just downloaded from the Dynabook website and reprogrammed the BIOS. Okay, so after successfully flashing the BIOS with the new ROM file that I found on the Dynabook website, we're going to chance powering this on again. So I'm going to press the power button. Okay, so we've got the blue light down here that was coming on and going off. And now we have a display. And we're straight into Windows. So it looks like the only issue with this was a corrupt BIOS. So that concludes my video for this week. The laptop came in with a corrupted BIOS once I overwrote that with a good BIOS file from the Dynabook website that got us booted and back into Windows again. Please like and subscribe if you like what I do, and I will be back with another repair next week.